Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Miss Calderon with the Chapter 3 lecture, as promised. I want to go ahead and remind you that if you haven't joined our Slack channel, that you should go ahead and do so. I went ahead and uploaded a Chapter 3 PowerPoint lecture and Chapter 3 critical thinking questions, the answers to that you'll find through the chapter. I want to also remind you that when you go to Blackboard, and you go to coursework and OCPA, because that is where the fitness project starts. And you go to HTML and CSS, Chapter 3. This is where you're going to download your data files. And this time you are going to have lots of data files that you're going to be using to complete this chapter. This chapter is pretty long. You're learning how to add links, which is very important in HTML and CSS, and you are also learning how to insert images. You're learning about classes, which we really don't talk about until we get to CSS, but you're getting an introduction to classes as well. I do want to make sure that you are still using some useful shortcuts and that your organization, your folder organization, is still intact. So remember that we talked about making your root folder the fitness folder. That would be your root folder. Saving that to your thumb drive. So I'm saving it to my desktop, but you should be saving it to your thumb drive. And then you will be publishing this after you're done with Chapter 4. You're going to be publishing it, putting it through FileZilla, and then putting it in Blackboard. Okay, so this is how our folder looks right now. You should have your fitness folder, which is your root folder, your CSS, which there's nothing in there yet because that's not covered into Chapter 4, your images. Now, you have downloaded the data files from Blackboard, and when you've unzipped it, which means you've just moved these images from the zip folder to your own folder, that should unzip it. Then you have them. Do not change the file names. Make sure that they stay equipment1.jpg, equipment2, equipment3, and if you hover above it, you see that it's a JPEG file. And then, of course, the logo. So those are your 4 images that you currently have for Chapter 3 inside your images folder. Let's navigate back to the root folder. There's nothing in the media folder. We're still not there yet. Template. Remember, this is the fitness.html. Do not get this confused with your index page. These pages are web pages that are made using the template, using the fitness.html. This is just the bare bones. Remember, we spoke about how in Chapter 2, how it doesn't even show the logo. The links don't even work because this is just giving you the layout, like the wireframe. And then you're copying that code over and over again to create the other web pages. So we use this, and let me show you. Right click, view page source. We use this and we copy it on Sublime, and then that's how we create our other web pages. So what we've done is we've created 3 more pages in Chapter 3. We've created our index. Actually, this was created in Chapter 2. Chapter 3, we created our about, our contact, and we've made sure that we've put in some links. So speaking of links, let's go ahead and go over our anchor tag, which is the A. The anchor tag, these are going to be where it's linking. So you always want to have a home page, and that usually you call your file index.html. You must have a home page as your first menu item on your nav bar to bring your visitors back home. That goes, and this nav bar should stay consistent throughout every web page on your website. These are called relative links, and the book covers that really well. Relative links are when they're related to your website. If they are links that go somewhere else, to an external link, those are called absolute links. So something that is not related to your website, something that takes them to, let's say, Wikipedia or Amazon or another website that is not related to yours, then that is called an absolute link. If it is part of your website and you created that web page, that is called a relative link. So some of these links, for example, We haven't created the nutrition page yet. We haven't created, I believe, the class page yet. We've only created the about and the contact. Don't worry, we will be creating those. Go ahead and still put in the links and what you're going to call them, and it must match. These names must match what you call them in your files. So for example, about matches this link, and lowercase, no spaces. It's very case sensitive. Contact matches this one. Index matches that one. Notice how it's exactly the same name. So later on, maybe in chapter 4 or in chapter 5, we create the nutrition one and we create the class. But it's okay to go ahead and put the file names there. They just won't work. Also, we went over some links when it comes to mobile link. This is what you would use. You would use TEL : then the phone number. And that's going to go ahead and create a link so that you can dial that number. For email, you would put mail to and then a colon. And then that would open up the email. Usually it defaults to Outlook. So it's very important that you actually spell it out as well so that the visitor can see it on the browser side. Because if you only put something that says click here and they click on it, and then let's say they don't have Outlook, it may not open up for them. How are they going to email you? It's better to just go ahead and put your email address out there, put your phone number out there, instead of just having very vague, generic click here links. Just spell it out for them in case they want to copy it and use it somewhere else. So the contact us page should work. The home page should work. Oh, this was on page, I believe, what page did it tell us to create a vector image? You do not need to include the circle. This was just something we did for fun because the book told us to go ahead and insert a vector image, and it let us create it using some CSS. So we went ahead and tried it out. I forget what page that was on, but that does not need to be there, but I can show you what that looks like. The chapter does go over some images like JPEG, PNG, GIF files, and which ones you want to use. Of course, the vector SVG images would be the best ones to use, but you won't learn that until you get into images and CSS. So I believe we put that down here. So remember how we can toggle the comment. So for example, if I want to keep that there, but I don't want it to show up on my browser, I'm just going to go ahead and I could use a shortcut key, but in case you forget, you can go to comment, toggle comment. And now when you save that, Control S, and you open it in the browser, you'll see that it disappears. But it's still in your code in case you do want to bring it back. And then Control, you're using /, and that brings it back. So cool little trick there, so you're not having to delete your code when you're experimenting with what you want to show up. We did talk about div tags. What are div tags? Do you remember? Division, sections. Yes, that way when you get to your CSS, exactly, because you would want to edit different sections differently with your CSS, so you definitely want to do that. Here's another thing you're going to learn in CSS. The book is going to tell you to go ahead and put a class for your images. So when you insert your images, it's image, source, src. Make sure that you have it pointing to the folder, which in this case it's images, / and then the name of the file, equipment3.jpg. So in images, there should be an equipment3, and since it's .jpg, that's the file extension, you need to include that as well. Do you remember what alt is? Alternate text, and what does that do?
That's for, say if somebody is blind or the picture doesn't show up, it gives a description of what the picture is.
Exactly.
And in the case if they were blind, it would text to speech.
The screen reader would read it. Very good. And it also helps out your SEO. Search engine optimization, it points to this so that it knows what kind of image it is. For accessibility options, for people, like you said, are hard of seeing, the screen reader would read this out loud for them. In case the picture doesn't show up, it'll just go ahead and show this. So it's important that you add that for every image. Then we also gave it some attributes, some dimensions. So we put the height and the width so that we can keep it consistent. Notice how the last picture also has the same height and width. That way, when you see it on your screen, one doesn't look bigger than the other. Everything looks consistent. Then we talked about unordered lists. So unordered lists are bullets, and this is what it looks like on the code. Unordered list, but when you open up an unordered list to make a bullet, you must put LI. And that'll go, and then you have to close it, and that'll go ahead and make a bullet. If you want it to be numbers, it would be OL, and then that would make it numbers. What else did we talk about? Oh yes, description list. So we talked about, or not description list, what was that called? Definition term. And definition description, is that? Yes. This we don't really utilize too much, but the book shows you about that as well. We already talked about the symbol entity. So this is what the about page looks like. So some things that you want to make sure that you are learning in this chapter is how to insert links, how to insert images, and if you want to mess around with the SVG circle that we had, that was on the index page, I found it. It's on page 98 at the very top. They go ahead and give you code to insert to show you that you can insert shapes and make images using CSS. So it's really cool. Let's see. What else should I talk about? Please make sure that when you sign on to, or when you register for the Slack channel, that you're aware that you can actually go ahead and post code. So for example, right here, when you click on the plus symbol, you can go ahead and actually post code in HTML, in CSS, in PHP. That way, when you're asking us or even your own peers, you can post the code here, and then they can go into the code and edit it for you and show you how it's done the correct way. That way, you're not having to wait on us to email you back, and you're not sending us screenshots. You're sending us your actual code. That's why this is so important. You can share files, all kinds of neat stuff. You can directly message a student, a peer of yours, and I want you to sign up with your personal email address. That way, when you graduate from the program, you can still stay in contact. So I have an alumni page created for students who have graduated. Maybe you can share projects with each other. Let us know what you're doing out in your business. Okay, so then your contact page. Let's make sure everything looks good here. You have your logo, you have your alt text, and then I'll show you what it looks like on the browser side. H2 is used usually for subtitles, subheadings. And then, of course, all your contact information is here. And this is how it should look on the browser side. And remember that we haven't created pages yet for the classes nutrition, so that you won't see anything there. And that's okay. If you click on it and it says your file was not found, well, that's because we haven't created that file yet. So don't worry about that. About us, this is what it should look like. This would be an absolute link. This is taking us to another website that has nothing to do with ours, but it's related sort of because it's talking about fitness, but that's not the related we're talking about when we're talking about relative. We're talking about internal links that belong to our local files that we created versus an absolute link that somebody else created, that another company may have made a web page similar to yours. So the book does really good with explaining that. Okay, so this is chapter 3, and this is what the contact page looks like. Any questions, please utilize the Slack channel. That way your peers can have a chance on helping you out. And if not, then me or Marcos will get back to you. Thanks for watching.